Here's an old building hidden back behind the newer ones. I'm walking down a small side street in the hopes that I can find something like that last little place, the remnants. A pretty current little alleyway in which various homes open to it, like the hutongs, if you will, of Beijing, at least an allusion to it. The street, this old wall here, and what does it have, if anything, of interest to us behind it? Just some remnant of old structures that have been left. Probably these buildings are used and may be nicely done inside, but perhaps not. But even if that building's completely redone inside as a home, this older portion of rock and the blue door and the flowers gives it that antiquity that you can find all over the world, I'm sure, certainly in Europe. It continues to be nice to see how the tradition of design is still honored, and yet not far away. Look at this lovely design. Very atypical. This is another main drag, if not the one I actually came up but didn't remember this morning. It's perpendicular to the road that my hostel is off of, and so it should run, as you can see from all these electric tour buses. God only knows what they're going to see. Up there is a tourist station. A pretty street with this weeping willow trees, but I'm still searching for something else. I want to get a closer look at this old structure if I can, so I'm going to sneak in there. These are old buildings next to be torn down. You can see there's been some kind of excavation here of some sort, who knows what. You're seeing the last remnant of this town. Just a close-up of these doors. Try to imagine, if you will, that people used to live up there, and that this used to be a complete courtyard inside here. Over there where those long flat ones are, may well have been some kind of an outdoor oven. And like many of the houses we've seen, this might have been an outbuilding of some sort, not likely a farm building because this is inside of a town. But imagine when these threshold rocks were first installed. And what was this big pillar rock for? You'll notice this new street sign doesn't have anything in pinyin on it, indicating that the city really doesn't care about Europeans and Americans. Now, theoretically, down this road should be old areas. We'll see. This is probably pretty much the way a relatively recent utilitarian neighborhood has been developed. It's commercial area, and that is these double stories. People live upstairs. The glass is interesting. I haven't seen that before. All these metal front panel doors that can open up for businesses, which are somewhat of an allusion to the past, and that's just about it. These mainly serve the purpose, I think, of defensive, protective doors, fronts. If in fact it is a neighborhood commercial area, it's very sterile, uninviting. Here, a little bit of the past that we can see. This property with trees completely covered with vines, including the big tall tree there, must have held some kind of a structure on what are fairly substantial walls. This is a slightly different modern or recent building with some novel colors and tile use in it. It's not my intent to mock or be cynical about this town. except that it's sold as a tourist town because of old Dali, but old Dali ain't old. I'm glad the people have a better way of life, and it's substantially better, but nothing here to see. This that I found is old. It's an old well from Dali. That rounded well stone with a hole in it. And then above it, some kind of decorative plaque. This was probably the entrance to one of the grand old houses of Dali. The wood structure up there has carving on it, panels that were probably painted. Those panels probably were plastered over and had decorations in them. Also, you'll notice that the detail along that upper part of the wall and these substantial rocks. And the substantial rocks here also heavily worn, the wood even more so. Again, the same thing here. And there are the carved panels. It's nice. This one side panel remaining. Probably this was an original building. There's something better behind it, I'm sure. Here in this section of a nearby cross street, looks like it must have been old. Had plaster surfaces on it, and this doorway looks interesting. It's a wider doorway with bigger panels. Who knows what that implies? Although the remaining woodwork doesn't look as impressive as the last smaller door that we saw. Here an attempt's been made by the next door property to maintain, at least to a degree, or protect the woodwork. And there are the remnants of some painting on those panels. And there are these cornerstones. The flower directions for this property are very pretty. Shows you a gorgeous use of it. And beyond the street looks pretty. This should be the north gate. Kind of doubt any of these rocks are really old. In fact, there you get a hint of it. Probably more like brick covered with a fascia. Here's a classical building near the Chinese medicine hospital. I've come back to this shop that I walked past early in the afternoon because the lady and her daughter were making some dumplings. And I noticed that it's very clean inside and very new building back there. Ni hao. Notice the size of the chunks are about 50-cent piece, maybe a quarter of an inch thick, and then they're only about 3.25 inches when he rolls them out. So this is going to be the second one, which is from the bottom in English, and the second one in the bottom in Chinese. So it's lettuce, eggs, and tofu. And she keeps it in a little canister there. But you can, now these are boiled, I'm pretty sure, because there's a fair amount of water in the center as opposed to steamed. It can be done anyway, including fried. And then this is the mixture of that deadly spice, and it's a spice that comes in a jar, so it's not the dry spice. And then you mix it with a little bit of soy sauce. And then some soup too. Now one thing I think happens is when you make it the size I said and then you cook it, it gets bigger and it gets fatter too. So apparently the way to say dumplings is jiaozi, jiaozi. There's another thing that I will make is baozi, baozi, and that's the bigger thing, the round ones. Same thing. So the vegetable she's using for the beef and vegetable is this little jobby right here, which I don't know what it is. Although I think I've seen it before. See, this is not just one stalk. It's multiple stalks inside of it. So in case I happen to see this. This is the lady. She and her husband made the dumplings for me. So I will come back again tomorrow. Looking up the sub, but non-touristy area road that leads up to where my hostel is.
That thing about a Gershon basket. So he wrote